Frank, great to speak to you. Thanks so much for your time. I guess the big story last week was this WBC convention that took place. We all expected Tyson Fury against Dillian Whyte to be ordered. That didn't happen. Was that a surprise for you?
No, because at the time when he was the mandatory, before, I think it was before he got defeated by what's his name? When he got
Povetkin,
yeah. So he got done by Povetkin, and obviously he won the rematch. However, that knocked his place. That knocked him out the mandatory spot. And it is what it is. I mean, obviously he's got legal action going on with him, and that's something that'll be decided between the organisation and him. I think the WBC have now said that they're going to arbitration, or they're both parties are going to arbitration, and they'll make a decision as to whether he actually is the mandatory challenger or not. And then obviously they'll determine what the terms are going to be. And they're talking about 80-20 or less in favour of Tyson, because they based that off of the purses. And apparently, according to what he lodged for his last fight, was £300,000 or dollars, whatever it may be. So that's why the split is what it is.
And when it comes to this arbitration, as we learnt with the Wilder arbitration, these can go on for such a long time. Have you got any idea about when this is going to be resolved?
I've got no idea, and I haven't got any idea, but it won't impact on Tyson. Tyson has made it very clear he wants to fight at the end of February, early March, and that's what we are moving forward to do. I'm up there tomorrow for Tommy Fury and Jake Paul, the pressing that's being done up in Morecambe, and I'll see Tyson when I'm there, and we'll just go through some various scenarios. But, Tyson's in a good place at the moment now, and he wants to just keep active. He's been out the ring for nearly 22 months. So he just wants, he's had one fighting at 22 months since his last fight against Deontay Wilder. So he just wants to keep active and keep working. So that's where we're at. And obviously, whatever happens with Dillian Whyte will take its course.
Tyson said at the weekend, didn't he? He said, I will be fighting end of February or March, or I'm going to sack my promotional team. So is that the plan, whether it's Dillian Whyte or potentially somebody else?
Well, whoever it is there isn't a problem with a date. Tyson's got to make a decision who he wants to fight. The decision will be his. What he wants to do.
What potential options are there if it's not Dillian Whyte?
Well, what I would like to happen, I don't know if it can happen, is for Joshua to step aside and do the mandatory. And that would make a lot of sense, in as much that, first of all, it would be a unification match. I'm assuming, and I believe that Tyson would win that. And if he was to win that, Anthony Joshua would actually get into a fight for all the belts, rather than have to take the risk again of going in with Usyk. So for me, that would make sense, a sensible thing to do. But there becomes a conflict of interest for Matchroom. Obviously, they purport to look after Dillian Whyte, although Dillian Whyte says he has no contract with them. So it's a bit, their end's a little bit messy. That's probably why he's been sitting on the sidelines for so long. But the fact of the matter is, as far as Tyson's concerned, we will be moving very quickly now as to announcing his next fight, because obviously, if it is sort of late February, early March, we've got to get it up and on sale.
And what will be the deadline for Dillian Whyte, really, in terms of him getting his legal situation out of the way? When would you need to start pressing forward with another opponent if it wasn't going to be Dillian? Do
that now, and we're not going to be hampered by his problems that he's got. They're his problems, and to be sorted out. Then that's down to them. We're not, what everybody's got to understand is Tyson is the world champion, not Dillian Whyte. We're not. This is not going to. We're not sort of. He's not setting the ground rules here. There's the champion who will do it, and obviously he's got to sort out his situation with his arbitration. And I don't even know if they've called a date for it yet. Who knows? I mean, Tyson's arbitration took ages.
That's one thing that's quite key to point out, really. The fact is, Tyson isn't in limbo because of this situation. Tyson is free to do what he wants as things stand.
He will fight. He will fight. He will have a fight.
And when it comes to Tyson, we spoke a month or so ago, and he was sort of deliberating what he'd do next. Have you sensed a real change in mindset with him in the last few weeks?
Well, yeah, because he wants to be active, his mindset is that he wants to get in the ring and he wants to fight, and it's been that way since he's come back. And that is basically his mantra. Get me out. I want to fight. I'm not hanging around. I'm not sitting around. I'm not waiting for anything. Just get me out. And that's really what our job is to do, is to ensure that happens. And he's going to, as I say, he's got to make a decision as to who he wants to fight.
And if it's not going to be Dillian Whyte, and if it's going to be tricky to make that Usyk fight, Joe Joyce is somebody who's well ranked when it comes to the WBC, the WBO. Do you think that's a fight you'd like to make now, though?
I think it's a great fight for the British fans, but there's lots of options. But as I say, at the end of the day, we'll be clearer when we sit down and we go through it together and make a decision as to which direction he wants to go in.
And in terms of the chats you've had with Bob, is it a fight, the next fight for Tyson, something you'd like to see in the UK now?
Well, Bob has said that, and I've said that. I mean, you know, unless somebody comes up with another option, there's something to consider. We'll see. But you know, Bob's his American promoter. I'm his. I'll promote everything outside of America, and that's where we're at. So we will make a decision. And as I say, if something comes out left field, then it's something we'll consider. But in the meantime, we've got to just make sure that we deliver, and we're not going to be sitting around waiting for something to happen. We've got to make it happen.
And when it comes to Joe Joyce, because of the situation with the WBC with Dillian Whyte, because of the uncertainty, I guess still there's no confirmation about the rematch between Joshua and Usyk. Is that why Joe's sort of biding his time? There's not been any announcement yet on what his next fight will be.
Well, there's not. There hasn't been. But again, Joe's not going to be sitting around now. We've waited quite a while, and I was a bit disappointed for him and for Daniel Dubois. Both of them are not out this side of Christmas. So both of them will fight early in the new year. And again, we're not going to be sitting around waiting for things to happen. We've got to make them happen for the boys. We didn't want to jeopardise their positions. Both of them are ranked number one by their respective organisations, the WBO and the WBA. So we've got to make sure we preserve their positions. But having said that, they've got to be active. So that's what we're working towards.
And did you come close at any stage to being able to get that fight with Trevor Bryan, who's a WBA regular champion? I mean, it's quite incredible. He's fought once in 3 years, I think it is now.
Do you know what? The WBA, and I've got to say this, is a mess. Is a mess. It's so, they got so many different things going on there. I don't understand it. It's very difficult. You know, we entered into agreements with them. We signed contracts for fights. We put fights on based upon representations that were made. And they're all over the place at the moment with this. There's Manuel Child. I understand Lanius has suddenly reared his head. He's been promising. So we'll just see. But the fact of the matter is, Daniel's number one, and he's the guy. They can't manipulate ratings. They can't change them. We're not the type of people who sit around and allow that.
When it comes back to Tyson's potential fight against Dillian Whyte, do you see that being a fight that can happen even if it isn't a fight mandated by the WBC? Or do you see Tyson only taking that fight if he's ordered to?
You know, Dillian, if he's sensible with the terms and the monies, then why wouldn't it be? You know, that's another fight, obviously, to be considered and made. And it's not a problem. Not against him having the fight. It was the way we're being, you know, the way the people harping on about what a split should be and so forth. Everybody puts on their sensible head. Sure, that's a fight that can be made.
What sort of split do you think Dillian's team are looking for then?
Well, they were talking about 65-45, 60-40. That's not going to happen. I mean, what is he? You know, God, come on, he got knocked out in these 2 fights ago.
So something like 80-20, you think it is a much more fair?
That you know, whatever it is. I mean, based upon his last purse, he may not even get 80-20. Not from us. From if they order it, if he wins the arbitration, they might even make it less.
That's great, Frank. Great to speak to you as ever, and we'll speak to you next week in 5 weeks.
And you, James, and I hope you're well, mate.